When the boat comes in.
Hello and welcome to the When the Boat Comes In podcast. Today we're talking about episode 7, which is called There's a First Time for Everything. A very good episode. I did very much enjoy this one. Basically, the two first times for everything. Well, first of all is Bella opening up a shop for the first time. And this is great because Bill has no idea this is going on because he's been away at the hospital, hasn't he, recovering from his pit accident. And he's very much against this, but Bella realises that she has to do this. Otherwise, they're just going to be living on handouts for the rest of their lives. And it's interesting with Bill because to begin with, he's so against this. And he was saying like how he'll be counting every penny. And then that's exactly what he does, doesn't he? And he really does embrace it. And he becomes a bit of an entrepreneur, doesn't he? When it comes to running corner shops, later on he buys 3 of them, I believe. So to begin with, he hates the idea, though, doesn't he? And Bella sets it all up. She gets a bell. She gets Jack to make her some shelves for the shop. She gets stock. She buys some garlic or something, doesn't she, from the Frenchman at the very beginning of the episode. I remember that bit. And the other first time for everything in this episode is Jack getting married to Dolly, which is very much like a shotgun wedding, isn't it? If she hadn't got pregnant, there's no way they would have got married in the first place, of course, because he wanted to be with Jessie Seaton. But sadly, that never happened from his point of view, because we know what happened with him and Dolly, unfortunately. We'll get to that in later podcasts. As I've said before, watch the series first before you start watching this, because I don't say spoilers at the beginning of each podcast, because as I said, it was made in the 70s, wasn't it?
Here's to Mr. and Mrs. Ford.
Yeah, so the other first time for everything was when Jack was doing a toast when he got married. First time for champagne for Dolly. Yeah, and that's a lovely scene. They're in the pub. But Jack looks so awkward when there's that moment with him and Dolly, Mr. and Mrs. Ford, Matt Headley says. And Jack, he just looks so not up for it, really. He's, it's not who he wanted to marry, but that's the way it went for him. And of course, another part of this episode, which is probably the main thing, the main theme of the episode, is Ronnie Fairbairn.
Where is it you've got to start? With Pit Miss.
Ronnie Fairbairn, who's very talented, he can draw, and Jessie wants him to go to a drawing office. That's where he has to start to learn his trade, etc. But he's from a mining family, so he has to go down the pit so that his mother will still be supported and given money. They won't be given money if he doesn't go down the pit, basically. So she makes the hard decision and she says she'll get him out of there as soon as she can. But unfortunately, it doesn't go right at all, does it? It goes completely wrong. And it's very sad. Tom takes him in to begin with. And yeah, he's involved in an accident where he dies. Yeah, it's very sad, isn't it? Because you see that scene where Jessie and Mr. Ashton go to visit the mum and they're trying to convince her not to do this. But I don't think she wants to do this. It's just how it was back then. You wouldn't have been supported, and the guardians, as they were called back then, wouldn't have given her money if her son didn't go down the pit. So you can't really blame her in that situation. She didn't just have one kid either. So, but it was very sad, wasn't it, Ronnie Fairbairn? And he was so excited about going down the pit. I mean, it's a bit like when you have your first day at work, isn't it? It's that kind of thing, thinking, wow, I'm grown up, this would be great. But as Mr. Ashton says, not very nice work. No, it wasn't, if you're being honest about it. Tough times, tough people. I mean, I've got some family members who were pitmen from a long time ago in Wales, but, obviously, that was of the era, and it's just very sad about this kid because he obviously had talent to do other things, and that's another thing that Mr. Ashton says, is that the main industry in that area is the pit, is coal mining. So, yeah, it's quite funny with Jessie. She sort of says about all these different talented people, kids, potentially out there, but they all end up down the pit, and then Mr. Ashton's like, you're overstating the case a bit. But, yeah, I mean, if you were from that area, the majority of lads would end up down the pit, wouldn't they? So I think that's probably the saddest bit of the episode, if I'm honest. I think it's very sad the way he dies. I mean, he gets run over, doesn't he, by I think Tom calls it the Chimins. And I think Tom's last line of the episode is very poignant. I'm finished with the lot of them, because first of all, he had the whole issue of being a scab, where he was just trying to help Mary, wasn't he? Because she was dying of tuberculosis. And then he had the other moment with his father, nearly losing his life, becoming disabled. So I can understand it, really, that he wants to be finished with a lot of them. And then this kid, he just takes him there one day, on the first day as well. That must have been very hard.
Scab! Scab! Get him! Well, Scab, what are you going to say for yourself?
Listen, you got it wrong. I had to. Me wife's ill.
Bloody liar!
Da?
When the boat comes in,